Excuse me. You cannot block a mandatory HOA inspection. I demand access, shrilled Gloria Affinity, president of the HOA and full-time trespass enthusiast. She was mid-tantrum at the foot of my gravel driveway, flanked by two jittery volunteers who clearly regretted their life choices. My wife Sarah, unbothered, flashed her badge with the calm precision of someone who had ended 100 standoffs before breakfast. Actually, she said, sliding a thin manila folder from under her arm, you can't trespass on federal property. If you want to talk, bring a warrant. She flipped the folder open. Gloria's face drained. Right there in bold letters was her own name, sitting at the top of an active, unsealed federal warrant. I'm Elliot Grange, quiet engineer, cold brew addict, Norwegian crime novel enthusiast. I live in a small self-built cabin tucked in the forested edge of Foxglove Summit, a rustic community run by an HOA with delusions of government power. I kept my head down, paid my dues, installed a composting toilet without ceremony. But peace attracts predators, and ours came in the form of Gloria Affinity, spiritual heir to Nurse Ratched and the kind of person who find a neighbor for emotionally aggressive wind chimes. Her latest fixation, cabin inspections. Mine was at the top of her hit list. She called it part of the quarterly rustic compliance initiative. I called it what it was, harassment. I told her no. She cited bylaws. I told her to leave. She came back with binoculars and a digital thermometer, claiming safety checks. Then the emails started. We're concerned about mold. Some residents reported smoke smells. Do you house bees? What Gloria didn't know was that Sarah, when she wasn't baking sourdough or keeping impossible plants alive, worked for the U.S. Marshals Service. She had zero patience for self-appointed law enforcers with fake IDs and inflated egos. The first showdown came on a Tuesday morning. Gloria marched up my driveway, clutching what looked like a property assessment form and the confidence of someone who'd never heard the word no. Elliot, we need to discuss your cabin's compliance status, she announced. I was on my porch, sipping coffee, watching two cardinals fight over birdseed, the kind of morning that made me love rural life. What compliance status? Asked. She produced a laminated card so amateur it might as well have been printed at a kid's birthday party. I'm authorized under Section 12-4 of the Community Guidelines to conduct structural assessments. I'd memorized those guidelines when I bought the property. Section 12-4 was about pool maintenance. Gloria, that's about chlorine levels. She sniffed like I'd insulted her ancestors. Well, it's been updated. 2 days later, she returned with backup. A jittery man named Dennis who apologized every third sentence, and a woman with a clipboard who looked like she wanted to vanish into the soil. Elliot, we've received multiple complaints about your cabin, Gloria said, as I replaced a loose board on my deck. What complaints? Dennis cleared his throat. Unusual sounds. Unusual sounds. Gloria leapt in. Hammering at odd hours. Loud music. Possible illegal construction. The hammering was me fixing the deck they were standing on. The loud music was Norwegian folk songs at polite volumes. The illegal construction was a bird feeder I'd hung last month. She whipped out her phone and started photographing my cabin like it was a crime scene. Is this structure permitted? She demanded. Yes, Gloria. I showed you the permits last year. Ignored. She zoomed in on my composting toilet. Are you sure this meets county standards? Installed by a licensed contractor. Passed 3 inspections. It's in the file. She scribbled on her clipboard. We'll need to verify that. The clipboard woman whispered something to Dennis, who nodded. I was starting to see why the last HOA president had fled to Florida. Things escalated when Gloria decided to go door to door, questioning my neighbors about suspicious activity. Mrs. Patterson, who lived across the trail, later told me Gloria asked about strange smells and possible fire hazards. The strange smells. My coffee. And occasionally grilled cheese. The so-called fire hazards Gloria kept muttering about. Presumably my fireplace. used in the radical, dangerous manner of providing warmth and a little ambience. Then came the night visit. I was reading in my living room when footsteps creaked across my porch. Through the curtain gap, I caught sight of Gloria, flashlight in hand, peering into my windows like a nosy raccoon in pearls. "Open the door." She jumped back as if I'd caught her shoplifting. "Oh, Elliot, I was just checking for carbon monoxide leaks," she chirped, clutching a device that looked suspiciously like a television remote. "Gloria, it's 9:30 at night." She straightened her shoulders. "Emergency inspections can happen at any time under the new safety protocols." I'd never heard of any new safety protocols. "What protocols?" She waved the fake gadget like it was a magic wand. "The ones approved at the last emergency board meeting." There hadn't been an emergency board meeting. I would know, I actually read the minutes. The real tipping point came when Gloria enlisted her adult son, Trevor, in what she called enhanced surveillance. Trevor looked like a hostage to boredom, parked at the edge of my property in a folding chair, binoculars in hand. When I asked what he was doing, he mumbled, "Monitoring compliance activities." "And that means?" I shrugged. "Mom says I need to watch for code violations." "What violations?" He pulled out a laminated sheet and squinted at it like it was written in a foreign language. Unauthorized modifications, improper waste disposal, and," he paused, "excessive bird attraction." I had exactly one bird feeder. Apparently, that was a criminal aviary in Gloria's world. The following week, Gloria returned. Unannounced, of course, clipboard in one hand, bolt cutters in the other. This time she brought a small entourage. Dennis, the clipboard woman, and two strangers who looked like they'd been promised snacks. "Elliot, we need immediate access for a mandatory safety inspection," she declared. Sarah, still in her marshal's office work clothes, stepped forward. "Ma'am, do you have a warrant?" Gloria's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "This is my jurisdiction. I don't need a warrant." That's when Sarah went inside and came back with the file. You see, Sarah doesn't just work for the U.S. Marshals, she's good at it. And when someone like Gloria starts waving fake authority around like a parade baton, Sarah takes notes. Months ago, out of professional curiosity, she'd run Gloria's name through the system. What she found was interesting. 3 years back, Gloria had used her HOA title to sign off on a fake business license in another county, pretending to be a government official so a friend could dodge proper licensing. Sarah had forwarded it to a federal task force on identity fraud. And now, the results were in. Active warrant for impersonating a government official. The feds don't take kindly to that sort of thing. It's not just unethical, it's a felony. And Gloria had put it all in writing. Forged documents, a fake seal, even emails where she outright claimed to be a county licensing officer. The shift in her demeanor was instant. 1 second, a queen bee. Next, flustered suburban mom caught with her hand in the cookie jar. That's not, I was helping the community," she stammered, her voice cracking. Sarah stayed cool and professional. "Ma'am, you represented yourself as a county official to approve a contractor's license. That's a federal crime." Her entourage began retreating. Dennis went pale. "I was just trying to help Bob get his landscaping business started." Gloria tried again. "With falsified government documents," Sarah said, pulling out her phone. The bolt cutters clattered to the ground, the sound echoing in the still forest. Gloria made one last desperate pivot. "This is harassment. You're using your position to intimidate a volunteer." Sarah smiled faintly. "Ma'am, I'm off duty. This is a citizen's arrest based on an active federal warrant." She handed Gloria the paperwork. "You have the right to remain silent." Gloria's face cycled through a patriotic spectrum. Red, white, and finally a pale green that suggested she might redecorate my driveway. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president." Sarah, phone already to her ear, didn't even blink. "That's not an actual position of authority, ma'am. And even if it were, federal law outranks HOA bylaws." The next 20 minutes were pure theater. Gloria ping-ponged between demanding to speak to Sarah's supervisor and insisting the whole thing was a misunderstanding. "I never said I was a county official," she huffed. Sarah opened the folder again. "In this email, you sign as Gloria Affinity, County Licensing Coordinator. That's not a real title, and you don't work for the county." Gloria tried another pivot. "I was just streamlining the process." Sarah's tone stayed even. "You created fake credentials and charged someone $300 to process a license application you had no authority to handle." Yep. Turns out Gloria had been running a little side hustle, using her HOA badge to convince people she had government pull. When the sheriff arrived, Gloria tried one last desperate counterattack. "This is about my cabin inspections. She's retaliating because I found violations." Deputy Collins, a patient man with the calm of a saint, glanced from the warrant to Gloria. "Ma'am, this warrant is for events from 3 years ago. It has nothing to do with cabin inspections." Gloria's mouth worked like a fish gasping for air. But the cuffs were already coming out. "This is unconstitutional. I demand a lawyer. I demand to speak to the real authorities." Sarah, literally the real authority, just watched as Gloria was escorted to the patrol car. She still tried to wriggle free, blaming deep fakes, claiming she was framed. But Sarah had receipts, body cam footage, time-stamped images, and for good measure, a witness statement from the former HOA treasurer, now the proud owner of a dog walking service called Snitch and Fetch. Gloria was cuffed at the bottom of my driveway, shrieking about constitutional overreach and deep state compost toilets. I sipped my coffee on the porch, watching 3 years of petty tyranny evaporate into the cool morning air. At the next HOA meeting, now live-streamed due to popular demand, I gave a 3-minute presentation titled Boundaries, Warrants, and Why You Leave Married Men's Cabins Alone. Sarah sat beside me, knitting a scarf with the phrase BYOB equals bring your own badge stitched across it. Gloria's resignation was instant and watery-eyed. The new HOA president introduced a single brilliant rule: if the property has no smoke, bees, or bodies, leave it alone. The room erupted in applause. Gloria pled down to community service and 2 years probation. Ironically, her assigned duty was clearing trail overgrowth, right behind my cabin. Sarah would sometimes wave from the porch while Gloria picked up trash, the composting toilet she'd once obsessed over just a few yards away. The first time Gloria saw Sarah, she turned scarlet. "This is humiliating," she muttered to her supervisor. Sarah just smiled and went back to her knitting.